Hello and welcome to the Columbia Daily Tribune's Behind the Stripes football webcast. This is Tribune sports editor Joe Walljasper along with Tribune football beat writer David Morrison. David, Missouri coming off a 48-17 victory over Kentucky. The big news coming out of that game was Dorial Green-Beckham with 4 touchdown catches. 3 of them were pretty spectacular. And Maddie Mock throws for 5 touchdowns and no interceptions, so his best game by far to date. As you look at that game, one of the interesting comments I thought Mark Stoops, the Kentucky coach, makes afterward is, well, they normally would play a cover 2 as their base defense, but they just looked at Missouri and the way they ran the ball and thought, there's no sense in doing that, or they're just going to run the ball all over us. So they kind of got out of character, played man defense, and essentially tried to make Maddie Mock beat them, which he did. Do you think Missouri may be scared future opponents from adopting that strategy of loading the box and playing man-to-man on the outside?
Well, I really don't know what you do against Missouri if you're a defensive coordinator, because they seem to be able to beat you in just so many ways that anything you throw at them, they're going to have something to counter it. I mean, if you try to play man on all the receivers, you're going to have something happen to you like Dorial Green-Beckham did last week. I mean, if you play cover 2, they've got guys like Marcus Lucas and Bud Sasser in the slot and LaDainian Washington who are good at finding kind of little, holes and niches in the zones and settling down and making catches. So that's probably not a good strategy either. And then if you load up in the box on the run, they're going to nail you with the pass. It's just, there's such a multifaceted offense this year that you see kind of a different person beat a team in every game almost, just because no matter what the defenses seem to have tried this year, except maybe save for the South Carolina game, but even then they gave up a 94-yard touchdown pass or a 96-yard touchdown pass to LaDainian Washington. But no matter what defenses have tried, Missouri's just so multiple that it's tough to totally shut down one part, I think.
I think if you don't have a front four that can pressure Missouri without blitzing, then you're just sort of robbing Peter to pay Paul, however you want to rearrange what's going on behind them. Really, the only team that did have a front four that good, I thought, was South Carolina. And I don't think Missouri's next 2 regular season opponents would fall into that category either. It might not be till the SEC championship game, if they were to make it, or a bowl game, that they would run into a team that has that kind of defensive line again. So that's good news for Missouri as far as their ability to score points. And I think that is another reason why Missouri's defense has been so successful, is they do have a front four that can pressure people pretty well without blitzing, and they've done that once again in the Kentucky game. They had 7 sacks. So that, I guess, is not like I am breaking some news that if you have a front four that can pressure the passer, things are easier. But I think without it, then you have to kind of choose whether you want to get sort of nibbled away at on the run, 10 yards at a time or 5 or 10 yards at a time, or if you want to give up the big plays, which probably makes more sense to at least make Missouri try. Green-Beckham had to make some great plays to do it, but they certainly didn't have a whole lot of trouble scoring on.
And you saw in the fourth quarter when Missouri did spread them out, or when Kentucky tried to kind of go back to more of a cover 2 concept, Henry Josie ran for 86 yards and a touchdown. So, darned if you do, darned if you don't, I guess.
Yeah. So Missouri, Gary Pinkel decides not to start James Franklin that game, and really didn't use him until the very end, just to sort of hand off a few times. He says after the game that he is going to play. James Franklin is going to be the starter at Ole Miss. Assuming that is correct, how would you approach it? Let's say James Franklin comes in and is not sharp. How quick is the hook, you think, for James Franklin, or is he the guy for the whole game regardless?
I think he's got to be the guy. I mean, if he's got that sort of Damocles hanging over his head in his first game back in, a month and a half or however long it was, I mean, it will be tough to gain any sort of continuity on the offense if it's, James is just 2 or 3 bad series away from getting yanked and putting Maddie Mock back in. And I mean, he showed how consistent he can be early in the season, even against Indiana when he had those 2 interceptions in 3 series or whenever that was. He came back and had probably one of his most productive games of the year after that. And granted, it was against a pretty bad defense in Indiana, but I mean, I feel like you've got to let him get back into the flow of the game without that threat hanging over his head that, hey, if you're not very effective, we're going to yank you and go to the backup guy. But I also think, the coaching staff might want to be a little more vigilant about maybe giving Maddie Mock that series or 2 that they tried to do early in the year and then decided not to, because now that he's shown what he can do, I feel like he can be a really good kind of change of pace option in the second quarter or the third quarter, something like that. If things are going well for Franklin, even just to throw him in and see what he can do for a series.
Although I don't know, it's not like he's that different a quarterback. He's just maybe not as good a runner, so I don't know what change you would want to make if Franklin was going well. I'd be tempted to play Franklin for as long as things were going well. If you get in a situation kind of what South Carolina was up against at Missouri, where it just looked hopeless with the current guy, then absolutely give Mock a shot. That's kind of what he's there for. But yeah, I wouldn't be super quick with a hook if if it's scoreless after first quarter, I wouldn't be that quick. But if it's, you got to win the game, that's the point, and other positions aren't so cautious with them. So if you do, if you felt like you're going nowhere with Franklin, then absolutely use Mock. But I tend to think Franklin will be fine when he comes back. He started off the season having gone 6 months without playing a game and did pretty well, so I don't know why these 4 weeks would be that much different. Lastly, let's look ahead to bowl possibilities for Missouri. Right now, at the time bowls are picked, Missouri could be anywhere from 12-1 in the SEC champions to 9-3 and not having played, obviously, in the SEC championship game, or anywhere or there's not that much distance in between, but somewhere between 12-1 and 9-3. Where do you see some of the possibilities for Missouri?
I don't see them falling below the Chick-fil-A Bowl, I don't think. Even if they go 9-3, I feel like the body works enough for them to get into that 4th or 5th choice SEC Bowl in the Chick-fil-A. The thing is, even if they go 12-1 and win the SEC championship over Alabama, that's not a punched ticket to Pasadena. That's where the national championship is this year, right? Yeah. for the BCS national championship game, because they've got 4 one-loss teams ahead of them, they've got 4 no-loss teams ahead of them, and that would just, even if they did win out and beat Alabama and won the big bad SEC, I don't know that is necessarily a sure thing for the BCS national championship game.
That would make them the best one-loss team, but if you've got Ohio State and Baylor and Florida State, then I think it's probably unlikely one of those would probably be ahead of Missouri.
Yeah, but but if they go 12-1, even if they go 11-2 and lose the SEC championship game, Sugar Bowl is a definite possibility. And then if South Carolina makes it instead of them, you could be looking at Capital One Bowl, Outback Bowl, something like that.
Or Cotton Bowl.
Yeah, but the Cotton, I think, usually takes the West. But I don't know if Missouri is geographically west enough that they would think that.
Well, it couldn't be much more west. I think that everybody probably thinks that the Cotton Bowl would be dying to get Texas A&M. I think Texas A&M is probably the school amongst all the SEC schools that would probably be punching above its weight as far as getting a bowl higher than the pecking order, because everybody's going to be dying to see Johnny Manziel one more time, and we would assume it is just one more time. So that would be, I think Texas A&M, depending on how they finish out, would be kind of a likely choice for Cotton. Jerry Palm, if you follow him much, he's kind of a BCS guru. He has Missouri projected he has South Carolina projected to go to the SEC championship game, so Missouri is not his pick for that. So he had South Carolina going to the Sugar Bowl, and he had Missouri going to the Outback Bowl against Michigan State, which would be an intriguing matchup. But the Outback Bowl would be, I guess, after the BCS gets its pick of the SEC, then it goes, I believe, Capital One, Cotton, Outback, then Chick-fil-A. So they would have dropped a little, but I think still a good bowl, and would be a kind of an intriguing offense versus a great defense matchup. All right, well, Missouri obviously on a bye week this week. Next week we will skip the football webcast. David, you will be dismissed, and we will have our first basketball webcast where we'll discuss Missouri's early non-conference games in basketball.